Since we were born, we've been accustomed to a system of payments with bills and coins, bank deposits, transfers, and card purchases. However, a new revolution is about to change everything we know. We are referring here to CBDCs, a new system designed by central banks that aims at nothing short of moving cash to the digital world. This will not only affect the use of current cash, but will change the way we trade, how we send money, how we relate to banks, and not surprisingly, it will open the doors to a new political management tool. And keep in mind, this is not just a theoretical idea or pure speculation, because the ECB has already launched the Digital Euro project, a project that has just completed its research phase and has just started its preparation phase.
The Euro system moves to the next phase of the Digital Euro project.
There's no doubt the Digital Euro promises to become a reality in a very short time. So, in this video, we will answer the most important questions of all. What exactly does the Digital Euro consist of? And what advantages does it offer over traditional means of payment? And above all, what are the dangers of its implementation? Is it really a system capable of subjecting citizens to political power, as many claim? Well, in order to answer all these questions, we have to come to none other than the European Central Bank itself. The Visualeconomik team had access to an exclusive interview with Ignacio Terol, one of the main brains behind the Digital Euro and an economist with more than 20 years of experience in the European institution. So you can't miss this video. By the way, before we continue, we would like to remind you that the reason we have been able to be at the European Central Bank for this video is because Visualeconomik takes rigor to the highest level. Independence and seriousness in the analysis characterize our content, although we always try to do it side by side with all of you. Your support is really important when it comes to getting videos like this one made. So if you are not yet subscribed to the channel and you like economics, we invite you to be a part of this great community. Subscribe to Visualeconomik so you don't miss anything that happens in the global economy. That said, thank you very much again, and let's get on with the video. I have to admit that when we came to the European Central Bank, we were quite skeptical about the idea of a digital euro. First of all, because we thought it would be useless. As it stands, there are already electronic payment methods, such as bank cards, PayPal, and Bizum itself. And what can I say? Digital euro did not seem to offer anything new. Quite the contrary. There are serious criticisms that, in reality, the digital euro could just be a tool with which governments could control what we spend our money on, when we spend it, how much we spend, and in short, constitute a method to end our privacy.
The digital euro arrives, more social control, and the end of cash.
The problem is no longer just the loss of privacy, but many point out that the European Union could program restrictions on our digital money with the aim of limiting the purchase of products that do not fit with Brussels' political preferences. And that's not the worst thing. There has also been speculation that the rulers might even set expiration dates on our money to force us to spend it.
The digital euro will have the capacity to be programmable to the point of applying an expiration date to our money.
Of course, politicians being able to choose as they please how and when we spend our money is a huge problem. A politician could prohibit buying press critical of his or her government. It could become a total weapon of censorship. But even beyond the social, the elimination of cash as a replacement for digital money could have terrible economic consequences. Think, for example, of undocumented workers, small traders, or the self-employed who need to collect cash under the table to survive. Without the privacy of cash, it would be very difficult to pay such people for their work, and many of them would be condemned to social exclusion. Be that as it may, all this is just speculation by the press and opinion makers of all kinds. And because we at Visualeconomik like to understand things in detail, we went to the European Central Bank to find out what is the truth behind all these issues, and to find out what the digital euro will really be good for. So the first question we asked was very clear. What will the digital euro be good for? What will it do differently from bank cards or PayPal? And this is what they came back with.
First of all, reliability. Knowing for sure that you're going to have a means of payment. Wherever you go in the euro area, you can always pay with the digital euro is something which in focus groups that we have held gives people confidence, gives people peace of mind.
Unlike the usual bank cards, the digital euro will be legal tender like banknotes, and therefore an electronic means of payment of obligatory acceptance in all businesses. In fact, do you want a funny anecdote? When our team members went to record the interview at the European Central Bank in Frankfurt, they realized that practically no bar or restaurant accepted their bank cards. They only accepted cash or the cards issued by German banks. And they were on the verge of not being able to pay in a bar because they simply didn't have enough cash on them. It turns out that in Germany, they are allergic to bank cards. What can you do? Well, with the digital euro, that will no longer happen. You will be able to pay with your virtual currencies in all stores in the Eurozone that accept electronic means. Nevertheless, there is an exception here. Just as an e-commerce that only operates on the internet is not required to accept cash, neither will a small business that only accepts cash and does not have any payment terminal be required to accept digital euros. However, on the other hand, the system will also allow payments between people. In other words, the digital euro will not only be used for purchases in stores or online establishments, but if I owe money to a friend or relative, I will be able to give it to them by simply joining our two mobile phones through an NFC connection. What's more, another advantage of the digital euro has to do with accessibility. Think, for example, of rural areas without banks or ATMs. If you live in a remote village, it is very likely that you will not have a bank to go to withdraw money, and that creates many problems, particularly for the elderly. Well, with the digital euro, rural citizens will be able to have a means of payment or money exchange on their phone or on a rechargeable card, an equivalent to cash, but in electronic format. However, perhaps one of the functionalities that will be most appreciated by freelancers in the digital euro will be precisely the following.
As a digital euro would be a public good, it would be natural for public authorities to use it to make and receive payments.
I don't think it will surprise you if I tell you that the public administrations, especially those in Southern Europe, are, in many cases, a bureaucratic hell. The point is that as the digital euro will be a legal tender, the administration will be obliged to accept payments with it, which, I guarantee, will be a relief. Ultimately, in the words of the European Central Bank, the digital euro has been designed with the aim of adapting the reality of money to new technologies and customs, and that includes the state, especially as more and more people are using digital means of payment.
Cashless payments are increasing worldwide. According to the European Commission, 55% of European citizens prefer this type of payment.
Be that as it may, and beyond the usefulness and technological adaptation, what will the exact functioning of the system be like? How will our privacy be managed? Will cash really be eliminated? Well, first of all, what you need to know is that the digital euro will work through a virtual wallet. That is a kind of rechargeable bank account that you will be able to access through an application from your bank. In fact, banks will be in charge of managing our virtual wallets. They will process our data, mediate in case of problems with payments, offer collection services to merchants, and, in short, they will have a role very similar to the one that they have now with bank money and conventional cards. Apart from this, another thing to highlight is that each wallet will have its own European IBAN code that will allow transfers to and from any person or entity that also has a virtual wallet. And take note, because this is more significant than it seems. You see, in traditional bank accounts, each country in Europe has its own IBAN codes. Spanish ones start with ES, those from Italy start with IT, those from France start with FR, and so on. The issue is that if you want to charge or pay between different countries, many companies create problems by not recognizing international codes. This is known as IBAN discrimination, but that's not all. On top of that, traditional bank accounts are necessarily tied to a specific entity. That is to say, if you want to change your bank, you have no other option but to change your account code from scratch, and that involves a plethora of bureaucratic operations to reorganize your payments, from changing bills such as electricity, internet, loan receipts, changing the billing address in the company where you work. In other words, a hassle. Well, with the digital euro, that is over. Each virtual wallet will have an identification code with the same format in all Eurozone countries, and it will be the same regardless of the bank you use. In other words, not only will it be much easier to make international transactions, but when you change banks, you will keep the same code. But knowing all this, what about privacy? Who will be able to access our data and see our transactions? Well, this is what they told us at the European Central Bank.
We, the central bank, would be holding records, but we will never be in a position to identify or to assign who is holding that record. It will always be the bank, the payment service provider offering the service, the only one who can link the identity of the person to the record of their holdings.
This means that neither the central bank nor the governments will have information about your transactions with digital euro. Only your bank will know what you are doing. However, all of this comes with fine print. European governments will be able to establish specific regulations limiting privacy, for instance, on the basis of their legal capacity to fight money laundering. In fact, this is what happens with traditional bank accounts. Only the bank know what money you have in your current account and what you do with your transactions, but the state, at any time, can request all the information it needs. Be that as it may, in that respect, the central bank makes it clear that privacy is a fundamental pillar of the digital euro project. Naturally, of course, in the end, the balance between private information and other policy objectives will depend on European legislators.
So how to, at every point of time, balance privacy versus other fundamental rights, that's for co-legislators to decide.
It's possible the digital euro will end up having the same level of privacy as bank deposits. However, there is an exception to all this. You see, the digital euro will also have an offline version. That is, a payment method that will not require the internet and will not keep records of any kind.
There would be another possibility of holding digital euro, which is the offline digital euro. And in that case, every time I pay with my device, the money is within the device. So just like cash, my bank does not need to check to whom I'm paying to. Nobody other than the payer and the payee would know that payment is taking place. So just like cash today.
With offline payment, no one other than the payer and the receiver of the money will know that the transaction has taken place. Or to put it another way, the offline digital euro will be completely private. In fact, a cell phone will not even be necessary for offline payments. The digital euro could be loaded onto physical cards, like traditional ones, without any kind of internet connection. The idea is that this format will exactly replicate cash. It will be like carrying banknotes in electronic format. No records, no information from offline transactions will transcend beyond the physical plane. However, don't think that the offline format will be a panacea for privacy, because in reality, the wallets will have a maximum limit on how many digital euros you can carry with you. And what is this limit? Well, even the European Central Bank does not know yet, so it remains to be seen. In any case, there is also a downside to the offline digital euro and its privacy advantage. If your card or cell phone is stolen, you will lose it. It will be the equivalent of having your wallet stolen, and in fact, that could lead to new types of theft. Now, in light of all this, it's time to talk about the most important issue of all. Will the digital euro mean the end of cash?
Because cash is not going to disappear because of a digital euro. So the rights of people to use cash will remain exactly the same, and you can see later they are probably going to even be reinforced.
The ECB, they make it very clear. The digital euro will not mean the elimination of cash. Or at least today, they seem to have a very clear intention to defend cash. What's more, while some European governments such as Spain's are constantly attacking cash, the European Central Bank has always come to its defense.
The European Central Bank has spoken up against the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party's PSOE proposal to gradually phase out cash in Spain. The proposal stands to violate the principles of the Treaty of the European Union, which states euro banknotes and coins are legal tenders.
It is no joke. Directly from the Spanish Congress itself, the PSOE parliamentary group urged, and we're quoting them verbatim, the gradual elimination of cash payment with the view to its definitive disappearance. So the Central Bank and the European Commission want to defend cash. There are political groups that undoubtedly see eliminating cash as a desirable option for their interests. However, caution is warranted. No government in the European Union, even if it is led by real pirates, would be able to unilaterally eliminate cash. To do so, the EU treaty would have to be changed with the unanimity of all member countries. In that sense, the legislative structure of the European Union is probably the most protective of the continuity of cash. But apart from the politicians, the European Central Bank, while developing the digital euro, has curiously also supported strengthening cash. Check it out.
I think there's a strong social wish for having cash in society, and that's why, together with the digital euro regulation, there's a parallel regulation on cash.
In this new proposal by the European Commission, which has been supported by the central bank, the use of cash will be reinforced, for example, by making it mandatory for all stores to accept cash payments in the coming years.
The European Central Bank seeks to take a tough stance against stores that refuse to accept cash. ECB seeks hard line against shops that refuse to accept cash.
The European Central Bank says it has no intention of making the digital euro a substitute for cash, and all its actions seem to support that what they say is true. Of course, the real opinion, the one that really counts, is not that of the central bank. It is that of the political elite. At the end of the day, the decision makers are the politicians in Brussels, and what is certain is that the digital euro could open the door to eliminating cash. In other words, politicians could argue that with electronic money, cash would be outdated and would need to be eliminated. It would be a perfect excuse to gain control using the digital euro as an alibi. Even so, apart from the possibility of the end of cash, which at the moment seems unlikely no matter how many politicians' mouths are watering, what about the issue of programmable money? Could the digital euro really be programmed to prohibit us from buying certain products or to put an expiration date on our money? Well, take a look.
With programmable money, the euro that you would receive as payee would be subject to restrictions. Then that's why we have said we will never do programmable money, because if the euro that you receive is subject to a restriction, then it is not worth €1. And also, as the central bank in a monetary union, the last thing we would like to do is to issue different euros which have different values.
The programmable money thing seems more like fake news than anything else. In fact, the digital euro legislative proposal itself explicitly prohibits the use of programmable money. After all, the digital euro is basically designed to function as a currency equivalent to traditional money. In other words, there is no mechanism to incorporate restrictions, no matter how much politicians would love it to be so. But then, where does this idea come from? Why do some media outlets talk about programmable money if it isn't even true? Well, most probably it all stems from a confusion of concepts. You see, the digital euro, even if it is not programmable, will have a conditionality function. And what is conditionality, you may ask? Well, it will be a system similar to the digital contracts that some cryptocurrencies have. That is, we will be able to condition money transfers based on certain criteria that we choose. But let me illustrate this with a couple of concrete cases. Imagine that I want to order a package on Amazon, but I only want to pay once I have the product at home and I can check that everything is in order. In that case, I will be able to condition my digital euros to pay only when the delivery man arrives. Other payment conditions could also be applied, such as recurrence, for example, to pay the rent automatically each month. We could also define shared payment conditions between one or more people to pay a bill in halves. Or perhaps, most interesting of all, we could set up payments between machines. For example, imagine you have an electric car and you're going to plug it into an electric station. With the digital euro, you can set up automatic payments between your car and the charger without having to pay manually. So with conditional cash, there will be 1,000 possibilities. And in fact, it will be a new technological tool compared to traditional cash and traditional bank accounts. Now then, there is one thing that has been explained to us at the central bank. One thing that practically nobody talks about, and which is, in fact, one of the fundamental reasons behind the creation of the digital euro. Look at this.
Within Europe in particular, private means of payment are not in European hands. So in a geopolitical context, having our own digital means of payment in Europe is particularly valuable.
According to the ECB, Europe has a problem. There are no indigenous European payment systems. The means of payment are mostly owned by Visa, MasterCard, or big tech companies like Apple. In other words, American companies. And why is that a problem? Well, first of all, and this is our personal opinion, it is not clear to us that this really is a problem, although it is something to consider. From the European Central Bank's point of view, not having an indigenous and public digital payment system can generate dependency problems. It would be something similar to the Russian gas situation. Almost all European gas came from Russia, and when the Ukrainian war conflict arose, Russia was able to blackmail Europe with threats of cutting off gas. Well, the same thing could happen with the payment system. If someday the US and the EU were to clash head-on down for any reason, the US could blackmail the Europeans by cutting off the payment systems and causing economic chaos. However, it is not necessary to go to such extremes to analyze possible advantages of having an indigenous payment system. For example, when you use an American payment card, such as Visa, you agree in the terms and conditions that your data will be processed outside Europe, where data protection legislation does not apply, which could pose a risk of inappropriate data use. In view of all this, we would like to point out one thing, and everything we have told you is simply what we have found out from our visit to the European Central Bank. In fact, if you are interested in the subject in more depth, we'll leave you a link in the description with the original sources from the bank. But again, here we function as a simple information middleman. Thanks to having a community as large as ours, we can access primary sources and not depend on traditional media for information. Likewise, we must also be aware that what we are told by the central bank, until the digital euro model is ultimately implemented, may be subject to changes, and at the moment everything is still very much in the first stages. So now we want to hear your opinions in the comments and start a debate. What do you think of the digital euro model? Do you think politicians will end up making a mess of it? Do you think the advantages of the system are more important than its disadvantages? You can leave me your answers in the comments. And as always, don't forget that here on Visualeconomik, we release new videos every week. So subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell to not miss any of our updates. Take care, and I'll see you next time.